Chapter 8, Diving Environment. Underwater conditions vary from one part of the world to another. Visibility, water temperature, waves, current, and other factors are different in each dive area. These differences influence the way you dress for a dive and the techniques you use. Divers will almost dive anywhere there is water, but they are frequently attracted to interesting underwater formations. The formation can be man-made, such as an artificial reef, oil rig, breakwater, jetty, or shipwreck. Natural dive sites include submarine canyons with sheer drop-offs, lakes, rivers, and coral and rock reefs. Any diving environment that does not allow direct access to the surface is called an overhead environment. Overhead environments include caves, the interior of wrecks, and waters beneath the ice or heavy kelp. Whenever you dive in a new area, you need an orientation to the dive site. You need to know what to look for and what to avoid, as well as the diving techniques that might be unique to that area. This can be learned by diving in new areas with a NAUI instructor, NAUI dive master, or experienced local divers. Always seek information about new dive sites from experienced divers. The bottom composition of a site also affects your diving. This is true whether you dive in a quarry, lake, river, or ocean. Usually you can expect the underwater terrain at the dive site to be an extension of the shoreline. If the shore is rocky and rugged, you will probably find similar underwater conditions. A wide, sandy beach usually indicates a vast expanse of sand offshore. There are exceptions, so it helps to check with other divers regarding an unfamiliar site. Water temperature and visibility are probably the two most important factors in determining the ease and comfort of your dive. Visibility can range from 0 to well over 30 meters or 100 feet. Diving in water where the visibility is severely restricted can be hazardous and requires special equipment, training, and procedures. The locale, seasons, weather, water movement, composition of the bottom, tidal changes, and other factors affect underwater visibility. Several problems relate to visibility. The most common is disorientation. With limited visibility, you can become disoriented and dizzy from the lack of visual references. You can avoid this by not diving in poor visibility until you've been trained in the proper techniques. Entanglement in fishing line and other debris can also be a problem in low visibility conditions. There are special techniques for diving in limited visibility. Divers can hold hands to stay together or use a buddy line. A buddy line is a short length of rope up to 2 meters or 6 feet in length with a loop at each end. Each diver in the buddy team holds one end of the line to maintain contact. In poor visibility, it is easy to become separated and lose track of one another. If you are unable to find your buddy within 1 minute under these conditions, you must surface using the standard technique to search for a lost buddy. Water temperature can range from freezing to over 30 degrees centigrade or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Diving in water colder than about 26 degrees centigrade or 79 degrees Fahrenheit normally requires that you wear some type of diving suit. As a rule, the colder the water, the more insulation you will need to wear. A phenomenon known as a thermocline will appear in the summertime. This is a thin zone of radical change in water temperature between the surface and bottom layers. The two layers can vary by as much as 10 degrees centigrade or 20 degrees Fahrenheit. As wind blows across the water, it transfers its energy to the water. The water starts to push into peaks and valleys to become waves. In the open ocean, these waves are called swells. As waves enter shallow water and are affected by the bottom, they break and form surf. The surf zone is the area where waves are breaking as the water gets shallower closer to shore. In coastal areas where beach diving is popular, divers must go through the surf zone to enter the water. Surge is the underwater movement of water you will experience while diving in areas close to shore with wave action. Tides cause water movement in many areas. Tides are caused by the gravitational attraction between the Earth, Moon, and the Sun. The change in the water level at the dive site due to the tide can cause problems while you're on your dive and do not plan for it. For example, when the tide is in or high, the water extends further onto the beach, covering rocks that are just outside the waves. This makes it easier to enter the water because you can swim over the rocks. When the tide is out, these rocks are uncovered. If this happens while you are in the water, you'll be forced to climb over the rocks to get to the beach. You avoid this by timing your dive properly. Water movement because of tides can also affect underwater visibility. The best diving visibility is usually during high tide. A current is the movement of water in a particular direction. Currents are like rivers or streams within the ocean. Winds, tides, gravity, and the Earth's rotation cause currents. You must consider currents when you plan a dive because attempting to swim against a strong current can exhaust you quickly. Usually you begin your dive into the current no matter how slight it is. If your entry and exit point are the same, you can use the current to help you return to the exit point. If you're diving from an anchored boat, a trail line 30 meters or 100 feet long with a buoy at the end should be extended behind the boat. This way, if you end your dive down current from the boat, you can grab the line and pull yourself back to the boat. Currents can be separated into 3 categories: standing, tidal, and transitory. Transitory currents are currents that suddenly appear and disappear. A good example of a transitory current is a rip current caused by surf. If caught in a rip current, you can escape these currents by swimming across the rip current, usually parallel to shore. Once you are out of the current, you can turn toward the shore and swim in. When you take the NAUI Advanced Scuba Diver course, you will learn how to use currents to make ocean diving easier and more exciting. The many different types of life in the underwater world make diving interesting. There are thousands of animals and plants to interest and amaze you. There is beauty and color that surpasses anything you can imagine. It is natural to be concerned about dangerous animals and plants. However, aggressive animal behavior is rare underwater. You might injure yourself by accidentally encountering an animal or disturbing it. Avoid potential problems by learning to identify them. Each region has its own hazardous animals. Identification and avoidance are your keys to safety. Most divers are concerned about encountering larger, more aggressive animals that can bite, such as sharks and killer whales. Seeing these animals while diving is rare. Barracuda are large, curious fish with a menacing appearance. These fish occasionally attack divers if they feel cornered. Bright, shiny objects attract them. In most cases, barracuda will turn away if you swim directly towards them. Eels are long, snake-like fish that live in rocks and crevices. They have a menacing appearance and long, sharp teeth. Unless you stick your hand near or in a hole containing an eel, they will not normally attack you. In salt water, the most common form of hazardous marine life is probably the sea urchin. Divers are injured when they bump into or step on these creatures and impale themselves on the spines. Stingrays' external body spine can cause injury. Most fish with defensive spines introduce a toxin into the wound. They will only attack when provoked, usually because a diver has stepped on them. Jellyfish are slimy, gelatin-like creatures that swim by pulsing. They can cause injuries through accidental contact with their stinging cells. The tentacles can hang as much as 15 meters or 50 feet below the jellyfish. As a diver, you can have a profound effect on the underwater world. If you are a careful and conscientious diver, you can help ensure that the reefs where you dive today will be there for your children tomorrow. A careless diver can destroy hundreds of years of coral growth in a single dive. When you first dive on a coral reef, it can be hard to imagine that hard coral structures are actually thousands of delicate animals called polyps. To have a positive effect on the environment, you must develop good personal diving skills and habits. Strive to perfect your buoyancy controls so you always remain a few feet above the reef or bottom. Learn to dive in a slight head-down position to ensure that you keep your fins off the bottom. Make sure that your gauges and octopus regulator are clipped to your BC to keep them from dragging on the bottom. Many thousands of creatures with beautiful shells live under the sea. If you are collecting shells, only collect empty shells.